Hi, I'm Denise Chapin, and I am your podcast host for Talking TA, and we are at Transform. And with me, Angel Cruzado.
Yeah, so it's either Angel or Angel,
Angel?
or my mom calls me Chiquitin. Yeah. so,
Okay.
so if you said any of those three, I'm still gonna respond.
Okay, so Chiquitin, Angel, or Angel.
Yeah.
Cruzado is his last name,
Yes.
and he is the CEO and founder of a company called Respiris.
Respiris.
Okay.
Yes. Spoke about AI and the career prayer. And we know that those two words, when combined, it's either radioactive or magnetic. And so, but we believe that the job search, when you're looking for a new job, it does not start at the resume component or on LinkedIn. It starts when you launch your career prayer. Now, the question is,
What is your career prayer?
exactly, and that's, we can kind of get into it if you want. So,
Of course, definitely. Well, let's start with a couple questions. So first of all, what are you hoping to gain, or what have you gained from this conference so far that you're going to go, okay, I am really glad I went to that conference because I learned so easy.
super good question. Well, a couple of things have happened. And so I threw a pickleball event.
Oh,
And there was a lot of community on Sunday before the event started. So we transitioned into Transform. And we'll be transitioning. We have the unofficial hub crawl, Transform. And we're meeting at the lobby at 6:45 p.m. And we have a path that gets us to the concert, the Timbaland concert at 9.
Really?
Yeah. And so there's over 100 people in the WhatsApp group. There's a lot of community, a lot of buzz. A lot of people have created that. But that's some of our values, is that we believe in community, deep empathy, and AI. And that's how we re-inspire.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
How long do you have the company?
I funded the company in February of 2023, but I've been doing outplacement for 20 years.
Okay.
I actually, as the head of people or HRBP at Microsoft Medtronic, most of my managers did not know that I did outplacement.
Really?
When we let someone go. Yeah, I always felt obligated that people, when they're onboarding, that we should do a decent job at offboarding. And so I would help people in that transition. I would help them with their resume, deal with imposter syndrome, go through some of the things that they can activate their network.
Just interesting, Angel, that you are in that business. I did a podcast interview with Right Management about 9 months ago, somewhere there.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, but I hadn't spoken to anybody from that industry for a long
Time.
Right, because it seems like there was Right Management, there was Drake B. Morin, there was
The big six
yeah.
is Challenger, Great Christmas, Lee Heck Harrison,
Yes.
Dexel, Right Management. And they've been providing a great service for people who are displaced. And so I have a lot of respect and value for the work that they do. And I think they should continue to do that work. However, where I want to help the industry shift in the last mile of the employee life cycle is that we need to get to a spot where we're re-inspiring people in their transitions and really working with them deeply. Like, who are they? Like, is mom in the next room because she's older and you need to care her because maybe dad passed? Or you've got 2 kids and 2 years before they go to college? Or, you love living in Ohio, but your partner hates it. And how do you move forward? And you have to have that deep empathy conversation with yourself and your family and understand what your career trajectory has been, because your life at 52 is different when it was 22. So you can't handle the job search process with like resume and LinkedIn and look for a gig. We're getting spammed from a HR business partner point of view and recruiter. It's very desensitized. Everyone's using AI incorrectly. So our framework is like, look, sit in with yourself, have deep empathy, reflect on your career, have gratitude for your family who's supporting you in this transition, and they're going through trauma as well. And then how do we move forward collectively in our community, in your home base, and how do you show gratitude for your prior employer who let you go, but you have gratitude because you worked there and you did great work? And do a shout out. My company let me go. I have so much gratitude for my colleagues. This is the work that I've done. This is what I'd like to do forward. And these are some of the things that I'm trying to do as a next step. And by the way, I know that we haven't connected for 20 years, but here's a picture of my family, my dog Pepito, and everyone else, right? So that's the important piece. So It's hard work, but I've created a North Star to this concept called the career prayer. Now, listen, I know that those two words are either radio or magnetic. You're at either side of that. But what? Let me tell you how we got there.
Okay.
So when you take a yoga class, you set intention.
Sure.
That's 75 minutes.
Right. Well,
In a company, it's typically OKRs and goal setting process. That's 3 months. New Year's resolution, 12 months. Now, here's the big thing.
maybe.
Okay, yes, maybe.
Yeah.
Now, in U.S. District Court, most people don't know that there's a 3 words called prayer for relief. We know the noise that's happening right now between Rippling and Deal. It's all over the map. However, if you look at the complaint that they have posted on their website, and you look at the second page before last, you're going to see 3 words, a prayer for relief, which is what they want the court to do on their behalf. They're manifesting that over the next 2 to 4 years.
Get out of here, Yolo.
Correct. So the career prayer is, as a human, what is your intention in your career over the next 2 to 5 years? And how do we use that to activate your network? Because your network, the people that you knew at 22 and 32 and 42, they all exist to help you, but they're frozen in time. And when I say frozen in time, is that like when you were 21 and your friend got drunk and you're holding your hair back or vomiting in the bathroom, or you're going to the sorority or fraternity, or you played baseball, or your roommate, all those individuals exist in your network, but how do you activate them? And that's the journey that we're on. And that's what we're here for. We're literally letting people know, it's like, look, your job search begins at the point that you articulate exactly where you've been, where you're at, and where you'd like to go. So,
Oh my God, we need to have a much deeper conversation around this.
yeah.
Outside of this particular venue. Wow. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's concentrated, right? And that's why, with Respiris, my company, we have an AI companion coach that works with a job search coach. And we believe that collectively together, that we work together with the same mission, vision, purpose. However, we don't want companies to check the box anymore. We don't want HR people to just check the box and provide outplacement assistance. We're like, look, every single company in this exhibit hall is going to go through a transition, right? If you're early stage, you need scrappy strategy. If you're late stage, you need someone who understands how to work globally and cross-functionally. The skills are different, but you got to respect and value every single, if you're a pre-seed, seed, series B, series C, that the skill sets are different. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to normalize transitions, but I'm trying to get people to think about it. It's like, hey, I'm in transition. It's cool. I got this.
Yeah.
But I know how to move forward.
Acknowledge and normalize, though, are two different things. You're trying to acknowledge transition versus normalize it, I think.
That is a true statement there. Yeah. Acknowledging that transitions occur and there's a lot of learning that occur. And it's okay. Listen, we know the stages of grief is painful, right? Because the first step is you're in shock, and then you're in denial, and then you get angry. And when you get angry, you get worked up. You go to this glass door, you're typing up, you're calling people, a church, you should sue. You should sue. You start calling people you should leave there. It sucks, right? And then you're like, oh, then you accept, and then you get a little bit depressed, and then you kind of accept the journey of being.
If we got bartering.
Yes.
Bartering's in there.
That's it.
And sometimes they do.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a lot. So I know we're
coming
in hot. We're coming in hot.
Yeah. Before you get to acceptance.
Yes.
Wow. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions for this podcast on the subject of AI.
Yes. Yeah.
What can we do as talent acquisition and HR professionals, right, to integrate these new AI systems, especially agentic AI, to help, move our hiring process or our recruitment process forward?
Yeah. So the baseline is, look, you first have to understand the technology, right? You have to understand that today, the staffing organization is being inundated by bots. It's a problem, right? Because you've got these companies that are coming in and be like, I can spam everyone and so on. And then what you're going to do on your side is I'm going to use an AI filter to scatter the bot to give me so it's a lose-lose situation. The key to do that is you want to be able to convey to your target employee base that you're going after to be incredibly authentic with you and to truly show up.
Sure.
And you have to mirror what that looks like for you. You want to know them deeply. It's okay for them to have a family, right?
Right.
It's okay for them to like want to work in a remote trip and to be able to manifest that from an interview process. And so the staffing teams and organizations have to, in some ways, park the noise of, oh, we're going to get sued if we understand their age. Or we're going to get sued for this or that. Like that's super old school because we can see people on LinkedIn, or we can literally take a look at someone's profile. So I think the staffing teams, like they can do a better job at branding. They can do a better job at just conveying what the interview process looks like. And they can be very realistic in providing a realistic job for you. If they do that effectively well, people will screen out because you're being incredibly authentic. But what's happening now is that AI is taking over and reading the resume, reading the job description, coming up with the cover letter, sending it on your behalf, and then spamming every single one. And then the person is like looking at like all the activity that is done. And it's like everyone is desensitized about it. It's very painful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It's
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, moving to the next step of this is the candidate experience,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So again, what can we do
Yeah.
to kind of improve the candidate experience so that we aren't just acknowledging candidates we're hiring,
Yep.
but that we're also making the candidate experience a better, I mean, just a whole better experience
Yeah,
for
listen.
candidates that we don't hire.
Yeah. Listen, there's, when you can provide, I go back to kind of what I just shared as if you can share with them what the interview process looks like. And then you can also indicate that, look, we're going to have a case study. And part of our case is an AI component to the case study, right? And you could give them a cheat sheet, right? You can say, look, I want you to develop your deck, your presentation using Gamma, right? I want you to use, Boppy AI or some of these tools that exist out there to support your case study. So it can't
like that,
it
yeah.
can't be just like providing a deck. It has to be like you're coming into the organization. How will you use AI? How will you show up to the market? How would you work collaboratively? And how do you do that effectively? So, but you have to state that from the beginning. So you can't make it up as you go. So you have to think through to be like, how do we normalize that every single person in every single company is going to have an AI agent? It's going to happen. You're going to have like multiple AI agents working for you. So if you're an accountant, you're going to have an accounting AI, a bookkeeper AI, right? You're going to have all these services.
We need to give them names.
You can, and sometimes people do, right?
Yeah.
They're marketing personas or AI personas.
Oh, that's true. There, I have seen it. Well, look at
Yeah.
Siri and Alexa. And
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's all AI driven.
Yeah. It's and so the other thing that I would encourage like the staffing teams to kind of think and consider is that sign up to the newsletters. Don't rely on like LinkedIn or Coursera to kind of give you content on what's happening in AI. It's happening way too quickly.
Yeah.
So follow people who are innovating in the space, understand how they're innovating, sign up for a bunch of different newsletters, and spam, create an email inbox and spam yourself, right? And so what you do is like at the end of each day or every other day, you go through your spam and you're reading all these AI articles and you're like, oh, wow, that does that. Oh, wow, that does that. Oh, wow, that does that.
Yeah.
And you're like, your mind is blown, right? Like of what you can do with AI, right? So, yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, is kind of trying to decipher what you need, though, because like you said, we see all of this information. It's like squirrel, squirrel, every time you turn around. But what's applicable to me? And I like what one guest said earlier today. What is it? You have to start at the bottom. What is it you're trying to solve for before you even look at any of that?
As a candidate, you have to have purpose.
Right.
As a company, you have to understand deeply
Right.
how you want to show up to that, and then how you have the matchmaking, begin.
Sure.
The AI component, you're right. There's a lot of noise on that, but a lot of it is like understanding how all the parts play together, and they're all different. And so it does take intention. For me, it's even anxiety provoking to see all these new tools coming out. I get stoked when I see the Y Combinator founders like building this technology and product, but sometimes that product is going to be short lived because you have to be able to go the distance, right? And that takes time and energy. It's not, you're right. It's a squirrel. Like you're looking at like a squirrel, you're totally excited. And however, how do you move forward like that? So
Good answer.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So let's move on to RTO, another conversation that keeps coming up.
Return to the office.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So I know
Yep.
I was telling somebody earlier, I said, yeah, it's almost like that mosquito that keeps coming
Yeah.
and it just won't go away.
Yeah.
So what is your impression on how do we, in order to improve culture, in order
Yeah.
to, maintain a positive experience
Yeah.
for people, employees,
Yeah.
candidates?
Yeah. Look, I got schooled at Wisconsin, and some of my colleagues at Minnesota and Cornell and University of Illinois, they're like brilliant humans, and they work with some of the best companies like in the world. And then you have HR team members who've just kind of grown up through the ranks, right? And so if we're trying to provide some level of direction, and maybe they have overcorrected in some things and areas that they shouldn't have maybe fully focused on. And what I mean by that is that when you're looking at your workforce, you can't deny that you can't use technology as an opportunity to create community. Technology exists. You also can't deny that interactions in the office setting is important. So I think what's really important is that a company, when they're building and scaling their organizations, they have to come up with a balance of both. So maybe in the company, like Mondays and Fridays, people, work from home and they work on site Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Maybe we work remotely, for 2.5 months, but we come together for 1 week every single year in Colorado, and we rent the same location, the same spot, and we do that effectively. So I think really have to look at the workforce objectively, but also understand that people, you can't compete with the fact that your kid is in ballet. You can't compete that your kid's like, a student athlete or a gymnast, right? Like you're
Right.
not going to miss that, right?
No.
When you've had that.
Isn't that
And
nice
so-
that we're there?
And-
That we're actually saying things like that? We don't want to miss our kids' ballet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
dads have taken on a responsibility as well, and moms have taken on the opportunity to have amazing careers. So you can't minimize mom and you can't minimize dad in finding that balance.
Sure.
And so in some ways, if we can figure out the return to the office really
Hybrid.
more about how do we create hybrid communities and develop best practices, and then also work, because no one's like, I'm walking around, no one's really doing that work deeply, right? Where you're saying like, look, here are the 3 best scenarios of companies and how they best work. And by the way, here's the real estate companies where you can actually come together as a community once a year, or like you can work, having shared space even, as a company, right? So how do you do
sure.
that effectively?
Sure.
So
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting you say that because they have the virtual offices now too.
Yeah.
If a company didn't want to invest in, the big office or whatnot, I mean,
Yeah.
there's companies out there now
Yeah.
offering virtual
Yeah.
space.
So the
Yeah.
startups, they're mostly remote-based companies. And so, look, it's a matter of time, right? Like, IBM used to be a great company.
I can move.
GE used to be a great company,
Yeah.
right? So if we continue to allow these business models, the market decides at the end, right? People decide where they want to work, right?
Yeah.
So another company creates an environment that creates a space where people can do their best work, and you get to show up to your partner, to your children, to your parents, because you're sandwiched, mom's in the
Yeah.
other room.
There's a lot. There's a lot of the
It's a lot. You can't just say like,
Sandwich-
hey, you guys are all going to have a 1-hour commute and come to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the sandwich generation is real. It really
Yeah.
is. And I think
Yeah.
that that's what's driving some of this
Yeah.
right now
Yep.
with the return to office, people pushing back on it.
Yep.
Plus, as I mentioned to somebody earlier, I think that the way companies are approaching it,
Yeah.
being demanding about
Yeah.
it, as somebody else suggested earlier, why not suggest a partnership?
Yeah.
Instead of this,
Yeah.
this push-pull, we're in charge, you're the
Yeah.
subordinate, you're going to do what we say.
Yeah.
Why not create this
Yeah.
partnership kind of environment with your employees?
And I go back to my thesis
Yeah.
that it's an education component of your HR leaders.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have those fundamentals in place and understand the theory of organization development and design, or staffing and compensation and benefits, and how it all comes together. And then you have these technology companies telling you how you should navigate your workforce, right? And they're all one, right? They're creating all one. They want to do everything in the kitchen sink. They want to do like payroll, and they want to do like performance management or whatever. So you're taking another company's framework and creating your own. And the HR leaders, the ones that in my opinion do it best, are incredibly educated, understand the baseline of theory, understand the transaction, of HR and can build best practices in alignment to that.
Very
Sorry,
good.
folks, if that's getting people worked up. And
Well-
y'all might get, you know,
No, don't be sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know it's good feedback.
yeah.
What about what you showed up on the stage? Go into that a little bit more detail.
Yeah, career prayer and like most people don't know that from a resume point of view, you can run a SWOT analysis. So a SWOT analysis is strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. And people get scared. They look at the AI component and they think of like, oh man, this is really like crazy. But really it's a reflection exercise. It's an opportunity to have a bestie. Your friend's gonna give you some feedback. AI is gonna give you some feedback. And it's gonna say, hey, here are some of the challenges and opportunities. But what you can do is say, well, how do I address them? And then you're going to get a plan, right? And then you can say, well, listen, if I were to allocate 45 minutes per day developmentally, how should I grow my skill set? And by the way, if I'm an account manager, what 5 other roles can I consider in addition to the account manager? And by the way, how do I close the gap developmentally and kind of how to get there? Or, man, I'm struggling with some imposter syndrome. How do I move forward? So a lot of these answers, for the most part, have come from your parents, from a therapist, from your neighbors and colleagues. And so a lot of it is like being able to do some deep reflection so that you can find purpose.
And a lot of people are talking about this imposter syndrome now.
Yeah.
When did that?
I don't know who, someone who's probably an influencer of some kind, but like put it out there.
Because I hear that term a lot
yeah.
now, and I've never heard it before until about maybe 2 months ago.
I think it may have started a little bit with the D&I component, right? Like women coming into work and not feeling like their full self, or a person of color and coming into the work and self-doubting because maybe they didn't grow up with the ecosystems that give them the confidence like early in life. So maybe that has to do a little bit, and maybe it's a way of like, giving people the opportunity to make that.
But don't we all suffer from that to some degree?
All of us should.
Yeah.
I don't have any hair, there's a piece where, you're like, I used to have hair, right? And you feel like, oh, what does that mean, right? Or I'm older, right?
Yeah.
Do I still have swagger? I got swagger, so.
Well, I think no matter how old you are, you can have swagger.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know people in their 90s who have swagger.
Yeah, I love it.
That's a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Great conversation.
Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you coming on here, and I want to have another longer conversation with you.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'd love to do it. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, in fact, we can shut off.